The Floor Academy podcast is sponsored by Trelama, the trade labor marketplace, where businesses can find skilled trade labor, such as flooring installers, and where flooring installers and other skilled tradespeople can find permanent or project work. You can set up your profile at trelama.com, TRALAMA.com, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. And remember, Trelama is always free for skilled tradespeople. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Phoenix, Arizona. We're here talking with flooring professionals from all across the country about the issues that matter to you. This week's guest is Jason Goldberg. Jason owns America's Floor Source, which has 6 stores in 4 markets and did $100 million in revenue last year. He also owns Retail Lead Management and the Trade Labor Marketplace. Listen in as we talk about how Jason was fired from the family flooring business and built the juggernaut of a company he is operating today. What has made him so successful, and how did he manage to develop the talent he needed? Listen in to learn the answers to those questions and more. Jason Goldberg, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Awesome. Welcome back to the Floor Academy podcast.
Thanks for having me again.
Oh, my pleasure. Last time we got to talk a little bit about I don't know, maybe it's a side project for you. I don't know that it's a main project. It's a something. We talked about Trelama.
Yep.
This time I want to get into the nuts and bolts of America's Floor Store, because you are a man that started with one location, and that's definitely not where you're at now. And it seems like it just continues to grow. And we've got plenty of guys and gals that would like to build like a mini empire like you. So I want to get into the nuts and bolts of that, but let's get you to introduce yourself again, and then we'll get into how you did it.
Okay. So Jason Goldberg, I own a flooring company called America's Floor Source. We're based out of Columbus, Ohio. We have locations in Columbus, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Louisville, Kentucky. We do all segments of the business, so retail, commercial, builder, partner replacement, and wholesale. And it'll be 20 years in July that we've been doing it. And we broke $100 million last year, which was a goal we had set 10 years ago. So life's pretty good, and things are moving along nicely.
So that's four markets. How many total stores?
6 total stores.
Okay.
So Columbus has 3 locations, and the other markets just have 1 location each.
Okay, so 6 total, right?
Yep.
Man. And then what's is one store pulling the bulk of the 100 million, or is it divided up pretty evenly?
So my stores are a little unique. The Columbus, the main location, sits on 10 acres and on 3 buildings, 125,000 feet. And that one location, which is the hub location, like in each city we have a hub location. So all the other stores only have a hub. For instance, in Indianapolis, the hub location is on 10 acres. It's a 100,000 square foot building. But the hub location is where we really pump out all our business-to-business work. Those locations do a lot. In Columbus, it does over $50 million. In Indianapolis, it does probably close to $20 million. And each city has a different size. In Louisville, we've got close to 30,000 feet. In Cincinnati, which we just opened a year ago, we have about 20,000 feet. So we start off in a small facility, and then we like to grow up. The only reason Columbus has more than one location is because we do retail here in Columbus more significantly than any other market, and it just made sense to open some smaller satellite stores in those markets.
Okay.
But the hubs do the bulk of the business.
Okay. Well, let's take it back to the beginning. How did Jason get into the flooring world?
Well, I was born into it. I'm third generation. My grandfather started family business, flooring business, back in 1934. And my dad took it over. I worked there. I was actually president of that company back in 1997 when I was 27. And I left that business in March of 2000 and started my own business in July of 2000. So, when you're kind of born into a business and the family business is a big business, you kind of really don't think about doing anything else. You're just like, well, this is a nice path. Like, I could certainly make a good living doing this. And so I started when I was in high school at the age of 15. I started off in the warehouse and pretty much worked every position. So I know the business extremely well, and I know each component of the business extremely well. But it was really my firing in March of 2000 that led to me going off on my own, because at that point, I was 29 years old, and I really didn't I didn't really know anything else, right? Like, I'd done flooring my whole. So if that's what you know, and you're good at it, why not stick with it? So that's what I did.
Well, so I gotta ask. I mean, it's the family business. You were third generation. What happened? Was it like a young, cocky attitude? You didn't see the direction that your dad wanted to take it still, and you didn't agree with that?
I would say it was a combination of multiple things. I would say young and cocky, absolutely. I would say some of my decision making in extracurricular activities was probably lacking back then. And, I knew I was better than the people that I was working for. And so I really didn't listen all that well. But the production that I was putting out couldn't be argued. But anyway, look, I mean, decisions were made, and the decision was to let me go. I doubt anyone thought that I was going to go and start my own company. It wasn't the first time I've been fired from the family business. So, but to me, it was going to be the last time.
Okay. So there was a couple months in between being fired from the family business before you started your own. Was that you searching around to figure something out, trying to get your life in order? What kind of happened in that lull?
So I took, about a week to figure out what I was going to do. After the initial shock wears off of, oh my God, I have no job, right? And I don't really ever saved any money because, like, I would just never think to based on my circumstance at the time. And then I decided I was going to do America's Floor Source. At that time, I didn't even know what the name of the company was going to be, but I wrote a business plan, and I still have it today. I keep it in a drawer. It's like a 60-page. It took me a couple months to put it together, and then I had to go try to get money to open the business. I started off with business to business, which means I was going to go after builder work. And so with builder work, you have to buy material, you have to pay labor, and you wait for money. So you need capital to be able to do it. Unlike retail, you could sell a job, get a deposit, collect on delivery, so you have cash flow. In builder, you don't have cash flow. It's very difficult. Mm-hmm. I met with 7 banks. This was all during that from March to July before we opened, and every one of them declined me. I still have the letters, the decline letters that no one would loan me money. Then also at the same time, I was trying to find a location, but since I had no money, I had to find one on the cheap. So while this was going on, I sold my house and I netted $50,000. And I had a 401k for the years that I had been working at the other company, and that netted me another $50,000. So I was able to put together $100,000. I did find a location. It was behind a church in not a great area of town, but not a super bad area of town. And I was able to find space for $3 a square foot. And without a bank behind it, I just one day decided I was going to go for it, and I just signed the lease. I had the money in the bank, and at the time, since I had been let go, I had a great relationship with the team that I was running. And at the time, I was running the builder division for the family business. I'd taken it from $2 million to $12 million in 2 years. So I had a very strong team of people who were very committed. some even quit within days of me being fired. So I got 6 of them to come start with me. So when we opened, it was me and 6 other people, which is also risky because I only had so much money to be able to make it go. But they all came on for less than what they had been making, and they all believed in what we were doing. And the other thing I did is I went and I met with all the builders that I was doing business with at the other company. And I got commitments from 3 builders before I even opened. So they were committed to giving me work. So I knew when I opened, I had a small book of business that was going to allow us to at least get started. That's how we did it. It was one of those things where I wasn't married. I had no kids. I had nothing to lose except $100,000 that I was able to scrape together. And if I lost it, I would just have to start over again. But it wasn't like I was putting anyone else's lives in jeopardy at the time.
Yeah. Well, you bootstrapped it, and that's you. Like you said, you weren't married. The salespeople that came over took lower rates and knew that it had a high failure rate essentially because it was a risk. But there was also a high reward on the other side. So, okay.
It wasn't people. It was, a warehouse guy, a field guy, a customer service person, an office assistant. It was mainly I was the main salesperson. We had one other salesperson that came aboard, but that was really an account manager, someone to manage the business that I was picking up. But it was tough. It was tough, but it was probably one of the funnest periods of my life because you have no choice, right? There's no one to it either works or it doesn't. You're ultimately the person who has to make that go, and you just have to make it work. It's amazing what happens when you have to make it work. What can happen to actually make it work?
Mm-hmm. No, I got fired from the store I was working with, the company I was with, for running my mouth because I like to do that. And that was an immediate change of, okay, I no longer have this safety net to net me some income every week. I have to go and find projects, and that's how it's been ever since. And I think a lot of guys and gals that are out on their own, running their own show, get that. You have everything on the line every day of the week. And if you're not out there producing, then you don't get to eat a steak at the end of the week.
Right.
Sometimes it's not even a steak. Sometimes it might just be the ground hamburger, it might be a can of tuna, but you gotta get out there and hustle to get the paycheck. So how do we, you essentially started from nothing. $100,000 is a good amount of money, but that's honestly, when you're trying to run a store and buy materials for builders, that's not going to go very far because you're probably 30, 60 days out on payment. I
would say about 60 days out on payment. From the time the job's complete, right? So you order the materials in 6 before and then pay the labor.
That just doesn't seem like you can take, you probably weren't able to handle more than a few jobs, especially with paying overhead on the building and the salaries to employees.
Yeah. So here's how we did it. After all the banks declined me and I decided to just go for it, the whole time I had been, there was a friend of mine who at the time was, pretty wealthy, pretty well-known guy in Columbus who was pushing me. He was also a builder, owned a building company. He's one of the guys that committed. And he's the guy that kept, directing me. So why don't you talk to this person or talk to this bank or talk to this bank? And at the end of the day, after I opened, and I knew we were going to run out of money, he agreed to co-sign on a line of credit for me for $100,000 line of credit. I was paying him for that signature, which is an immense amount of money for that kind of money. But, when you have no choice, you have no choice. So, ultimately...
I'm sorry, you broke up. What was the deal? It was you got the $100,000 line of credit, but he was taking how much interest on that?
So I got a $100,000 line of credit from a bank that he co-signed. In exchange for that, I paid him $3,000 a month. Plus, I had to pay the bank interest on the line as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a considerable amount of. I got to 200,000. And then within about a year, I had grown the business so much. So we opened in July. That from July to December, we did $1 million. But then in 2001, the first full year, we did $5 million. So it was some point during that first full year where I met with the bank, and the bank, like, look, you're doing well enough between the inventory and your receivables. You know, we can now support your line. And we were able to get, him off as a guarantor, and I was able to just take it on myself. And then as we grew, the bank would just increasing the line of credit as I needed it. Mm-hmm. So, and that's how we solved that problem. But the other thing that happened, and this is really important for anyone who really wants to, you want to grow your business, and you want to know how to do it. There's a lot of different ways that I'm sure we're going to get into, but one thing is sacrifice. If you are unwilling to sacrifice, I lived in a crappy apartment right by the store, not in a good area of town. It's something I'd never done in my life. I bought a $500 used pickup truck for my buddy to drive around. I didn't take a paycheck for that first year and a half. I did everything it took to make sure that the business had what it needed to be successful without spending anything unnecessarily or making any poor decisions unnecessarily. And I found that most people are unwilling to make the long-term sacrifice. Like, they'll talk about making sacrifice, but they'll do it for a day or a week or 2 weeks, and then they resort back. Like, they can't do it. And you got to be able to sacrifice for an extended period of time, or you're never going to be able to make it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge piece of advice. If you're not willing to put aside instant gratification because you got that big $10,000 check for labor or something like that, then you're going to have problems, Or how many times do you hear about the guy getting the deposit check and then he ends up having the brand new F-350 diesel? Well, the deposit check was for the materials, not for your truck. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So you're 100% correct. You have to be able to control your wants versus your needs in order to set it up so you can have what you want later, and then it's not going to be a struggle. It's that you have a system in place to ensure that can happen.
Right, and then you got to make sure that all the members of the team understand sacrifice and that we're all in it together, and we all have to sacrifice and be able to paint that picture of, hey, this is what the future is going to look like, and then being able to actually get there and produce what we said we were going to produce. So, like I told you, everyone came on for less money than what they were making. However, it didn't take years and years and years and years. It took maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years to get to where we need to be. Everyone to start making what they were. Never be able to start making more than what they were making, but have this freedom of this company that we kind of all built together. There's a lot of pride in that.
Well, so that's an interesting thing is how, you have employees now that are dedicated to your cause. They probably have more of an owner mentality than most employees would have, where they just show up, punch in, punch out, go home, don't have to do anything. So how many of the original, would you say 5-6 people came over? How many of them are still there today?
So I would tell you that 3 are still here, and that's kind of, that's not 100% accurate. So 2 of the absolute originals are still there. And then one of the originals was a female, and her husband wanted to come work for us. And at the time, I didn't want a husband and wife working together. We were still rather small. They wanted to have kids, so we did a swap, right? Like she basically retired, and she started doing nonprofit work. He came to work for us, but when I brought him on, I said, look, you're going to be considered, you're just an extension of the original because you just took where your wife left off, you're coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 others are not with us any longer.
Okay. But you're talking a 20-year history here, though. So to have 3 out of 6 and even if you look at it as a third of them, I would say that's pretty good. So what did you do to encourage that buy-in mentality? Because I don't think you'd get to where you are now without having that kind of buy-in from your employees. So what kind of things are you doing to get them to want to stick around and have an owner mentality?
Well, I had the luxury of, all 6 worked with me at the previous job. So I'm pretty sure I'd earned their respect by how I managed my department, how I treated them. We used to go out every night. I mean, every single night we'd go. There was this little bar right down the street, and my team would go, and we just established like this bond that couldn't be broken. So it wasn't like if you start a new company and you hire some people, you're starting from scratch typically with those people, developing them. I mean, I had several years and with some of these people, I had multiple years of relationship that we'd already built up. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but they knew my ability. Like, they knew what I was capable of getting accomplished, and they believed. And I believed in them. That's why they were part of my team. So there was a mutual respect of ability, plus, all that extracurricular stuff outside of work just strengthened that bond. Mm-hmm. And that's how we were able to do it. I mean, I didn't overpromise and underdeliver. I just shot it straight, This is what I can afford to pay you guys out of the gate. But if we do what we do, and we do it well, this is a short-term situation, and we'll get to where we need to be. And we did. And we did it relatively quickly.
Okay. So, I mean, we definitely, it's not just 9 to 5. It's investing in extracurricular activities with the crew and getting to know them and building relationships. You don't have to be best friends, but you need to have some level of understanding of their family and what's important to them, and be able to communicate back and forth openly about situations, it sounds like.
That's correct. And just being there for each other, right? Just being there. More than, I would say that out of the gate, we were more than just coworkers, right? I mean, we loved each other, every one of us. Like, we were committed to each other. We loved each other, and we were going to make it happen. It's different, right? I mean, I would say that today, with all the employees we have, I would still hope we have this family-type atmosphere. But let's face it, I don't know all the employees of America's Floor Source like I knew those first 6. Mm-hmm. Or even from the first 6 to the first 10 to the first 15. The intimacy of the relationship and the trust that happens during those first few years with that initial group, and how you spend time and interact, and the caring, it all makes a difference. I think it's very difficult for someone who's married and has kids, who can't put the type of time that it takes to build those teams, to go start a business and make it ultimately incredibly successful in the flooring industry. Because you simply, unless you're willing to put everything you have into that business and put the business first and your family second, which most people are not willing to do. But that's what it takes. Like, that's what it takes.
Yeah, that's definitely a big sacrifice, and would lead to a lot of divorces, in my opinion.
I would agree.
So you got to choose your battles wisely. That's for sure. Do you think that you've instilled, as the team started to grow, do you think you instilled the values into the managers that came along, that they needed to go and do those activities? So even though you don't know every employee these days on a personal, intimate level, do you have it to where you encourage lower level management that they need to go and take the guys out and do things with them and, build those relationships so that atmosphere does stay? Or is that something that you feel has maybe gone by the wayside?
It's not as deep as it was 20 years ago. I mean, we're definitely in a different environment today, and that has occurred over the last 20 years. Look, you can't go out and get drunk with your team every night of the week like we were doing. Like, we were just having a ball.
No, that's just because you're old now.
That's right. Well, I do encourage them. I do encourage every manager at every location, look, spend time with your team, take the company's money and go out and do things together. And it's funny because like we have, it depends what location I'm looking at. But for instance, my Louisville location, it's a very young team. I mean, young. I mean, the manager of that store is like 24, 25, right? And they got a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching this store, and I'm watching something very similar to what we did 20 years ago. Now, not to the extreme that we were doing, but, they're going out, they're going to dinner, they're grabbing drinks, they're spending time together. And then I look at some of the other stores where, maybe the average age is closer to 45 or 50, and they're not doing it as much. But we definitely encourage it, and we also we try to do, company-sponsored events as much as possible. Like, so we do, I do a Hall of Fame event where we bring everyone in once a year, and we induct several members into our Hall of Fame. We give them, like a Super Bowl ring that we make, but we do it with our logos. I mean, just stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're encouraged to go to sporting events and dinners and things like that. We also encourage to do it with the subcontractors as well, right? Because they're as much of a team as the employees. You gotta, it's everyone involved. And we even had our suppliers involved, right? I mean, we'd invite them to come with us to do things. So, everyone in the chain, we try to make feel part of being, part of the American source of success and relationship and family.
Well, I mean, that just sounds, to me, that sounds like the way it should be done. Why wouldn't you want to have a relationship with your reps and your suppliers and the subcontractors? And how else are you going to build loyalty? Giving somebody a paycheck doesn't buy you anything. That was an exchange of services. They provided something, you pay for that. What are you doing to get loyalty? That's the difference. And so I think that is probably one of the keys to your success, is that you're investing back in people. You're getting to know them. You're giving them a reason to say, hey, I like this company over company X because they actually look out for me or they provide me something. So that's one thing I want to touch on is you have a training facility. And I know that before the whole COVID deal, you actually brought in CFI and did a bunch of training with people. You've done some CTI tests, and you have some CTI tests coming up. It wouldn't surprise me if you did some NWFA stuff at some point, but you invest back into your subcontractors and pay for them to get trained. One, why is training important to you? But two, why don't you just require it and tell them to go eat it?
Well, training's hugely important to me. And it's not just for installers. When we do these trainings, it's for all the employees. I look at it this way, that you need everyone in the chain to have an understanding of what they're doing. Because when you can achieve that, the salesperson, the sales assistant, the estimator, the customer service person, the cutter, the measure person, everyone involved, we think about how a job starts. It touches so many hands, and there's so many ways to make a mistake that by the time it gets into the installer's hands, they're in a situation where they're in a no-win situation because you jacked everything up. But you can put them in a winning situation every time if everyone's properly trained. And I'll answer the question in a second, but this is in my opinion, one of the biggest mistakes most companies make is they don't focus the training to all the right people. And then a lot of companies focus on the wrong training. So to me, training is important. And some of the most important training to me is the application of the product. Because the application of the product, when it's all said and done, that's the most important piece. Because you jack that job up for Mrs. Consumer, then you're done. So application of product, as you know, involves a whole lot of things. Site assessment, floor flatness, all these things that need to be understood and learned, and then the application of material. So that's where I like to spend an immense amount of our time training, where most people spend most of their time training on rah-rah stuff. How do we become a better salesperson? Like, how do I get this person to buy? And if they really understood that if you increase your knowledge on the product and the application process, and you knew that to a T and you knew it correctly, then you would actually be ahead of probably 98% of every other flooring company, because most retailers across the country don't actually understand that component anywhere close to the level that they should know. You know it. You probably sell from companies. You hear we see it every day in these Facebook groups for the guys who are subbing, how much they hate subbing for different shops because the shops are constantly putting them in a situation of loss. Well, the installers that work at America's Source Source, the majority of the time the jobs are always correct because we spent so much time on this type of training. I do have 2 training facilities. I have one in Columbus and one in Indianapolis. And we, it's one of our major differences, one of our competitive advantages that we have the ability to do this type of training. And the reason that I pay for it, look, I do training for my employees. And if a subcontractor wants to join into a training, I'll pick up the tab for that. We don't make them. We just say, look, we're setting up training. It'll be in the training facility on these days. If you want to show up, there's a fee for us to pay. I will happily pay it if you're willing to put your time in to do it. And as you know, I'm doing it for guys who don't even work for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who don't even work for me that I'm doing on the next one. But it's going to help me. Look, you're a smart guy. I'm not doing it for nothing. I'm going to meet a whole bunch of new guys. And the fact that they're willing to come in and take a CTI test tells me that they're serious about wanting to be a professional.
Yes.
At America's Source, we call it being the experts. No one is going to be more expert than us. So this gives me an ability to find other people who have that same mentality. You never know. By the time they come in and do the orientation on the Friday, and then I take them to dinner, and then Saturday they take the test, by Monday I may be offering them a job. Right? Hey, man, why don't you come work for me? You see what we do? You may like it better.
Correct. And it takes some things off your plate. To sub work from a store that can have their act together would make a huge difference. I don't personally sub because I find there's too many hands in the pot at that point, and I guess I'm greedy. I want a bigger piece of the pie, so I go and find my own work and sort it all out. I think you're right, though, that look, I wasn't the greatest salesman when I started. I'm still not. I read books on how to do better at sales and marketing and all of that. But the one thing that has saved me from the very beginning when I went out on my own was like you said, I know the application of the flooring. I know how it has to be put down and installed. So when I'm going in and I'm doing a bid with potential clients, I can find all the little things that nobody else mentioned. Hey, it's going to be a little high over here. We have this option or this option to solve it. What do you think you would like to do? Or, and I can go through a job and I'm looking at it from an installer perspective. I'm not looking at it from, I can tell you the difference between carpet A and carpet B because all I have is product knowledge. That's great, but if you can't do anything with the actual product to get it on the floor, you're missing half the battle.
Right, and the fact that you're able to do that, who do you think Mrs. Homeowner trusts more? The person who's selling and doesn't have that knowledge, or the person that can get in there and do exactly what you do? I always tell my people that when we need to be able to assess a job and sell a job from the eyes of the installer. And if we can do that, Mrs. Homeowner is going to trust us better. And that, to me, look, I'll take someone who understands application and knowledge, who thinks they don't know how to sell, over a slick salesperson any day of the week.
I think that's a great idea. I wouldn't argue that one bit. How do we get, man? Okay. So you start in one, you're in this bum location.
No, but I do want to mention one more thing about training.
Okay.
With the organizations that we have in the flooring industry, WFCA, National Wood Flooring Association, National Tile Contractors Association, I think that some of these organizations are making a mistake because they spend the vast bulk of their time and resources and effort on the contractor, the person who's going to put the floor in. And the understanding needs to come that, look, you want to transform the trade, you got to transform the whole thing. And that's what we focus on. So instead of only focusing on the contractor, why can't we have programs to focus on the contractor, the salesperson, estimator, the sales assistant, the operations manager? Because when they all understand how to do things correctly, then we are transforming the trade. When all we're trying to do is take contractor A and teach them how to directionally spread thin set or how to properly undercut a door jamb, that's great for that person, but you're only transforming a small part of it. So the whole industry is going to see my involvement in trying to help transform the trade from the avenue of, look, guys, this isn't only about the contractor. It's about everyone in this entire cycle that we have to work with and put programs in place to get them all better. But the funny thing is this, is that if the people who aren't the contractor just go through the training that the contractor, that's available for the contractor, you got it. Like, in other words, the components are there. No one takes advantage of it, except for American Sorcerers. And the organizations that are sponsoring it, I don't feel do enough to try to get anyone other than contractors to these types of trainings. And that's what we really need to focus on getting resolved.
I think that's an amazing point. I do know that NWFA does have a salesperson class.
Okay.
But you're right in that there's probably not enough, and that it is always, okay, we need to get skilled labor trained. We need to get more people trained and make sure that they're certified. And one of the problems is that stores don't even know this exists. So no one's interested because no one requires it. I think it'd be really interesting to see a bunch of stores start saying, we will only hire certified installers to do our work. And I wonder what that would do to the industry. But you're right in that, if your sales staff and your front desk person aren't trained, then they're missing out on opportunities as well.
That's correct. So, but I think we're going to see a lot of that moving forward in the future. Then the other challenge for other stores is, if you're a store of 3 or 4 people, it's making the time, right, to commit. Can I go to a training for 2 or 3 days, and then making the financial commitment to do it? And some people are just unwilling. They don't realize the benefit of, look, that time and that money that you're going to spend is going to be paid back 100-fold.
Mm-hmm. My thing has always been, look, I didn't go to my CFI training because I am going to make $1 million from getting certified. That's potentially what could happen, but it's all on how I use it. I have to market my certification to make it mean something. I was more interested in the other individuals that were willing to go to a CFI training and take time away from making money and spend money on something. Those people, I think, have a different mindset, and that's who I want to network with. Those are the people I want to be able to build relationships with. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I was after was, let's go find the like-minded individuals, because hanging around the guys that aren't interested in bettering themselves, I'm not going to get anywhere.
I would agree. I think you can look at the Facebook groups that we're all a part of, and I'm amazed at some of the posts that happen, and then how many, like, there'll be 50 responses, and I'll read through them, and 40 of them, the person actually doesn't know how to properly do the application. I mean, a simple question was asked a few weeks ago about change of plane. And I was just shocked how many people grout between change of plane on ceramic. I was like, you guys got to be kidding me. Like, how does everyone not know that you have to use, a silicone type of product? It's amazing to me how much wrong is being done in our industry for stuff so simple to do correctly.
Well, when flooring becomes a commodity instead of a luxury item, you've got problems and people don't get trained properly. And now it's a matter of, how do we fix that? But that's where companies like yours come in, and Tile Money, and the Floor Academy podcast, and there's Stone and Tile Show with Fred Houston. There's stuff popping up all over the place. And so I think there's some grassroots movements kind of happening all over the at least America for sure, but I'm sure it's going on in other countries as well, that we're realizing, like, we have to save our own trade, and there's going to be a lot of individuals stepping up to find a way to do that and bring respect to it. Because right now, honestly, like, you tell somebody you're a professional flooring installer and they don't think anything of it. But if you say that you're a plumber and you go waddle around and poop all day, you get mad respect, which they're both trades. They both require skill sets that the average person doesn't have. And yet one is frowned upon and one is looked at like, oh yeah, that's a good career choice.
Yeah. Look, I would agree on everything you just said there. And part of the problem with that is some of the manufacturers, right? They're constantly pressing how easy it is to do this or that, and they're just so wrong. Like when you promote an LVT and said, look, any do-it-yourselfer can do this. But yeah, I can take the two pieces of LVT and I can snap them together, no problem. But guess what the average person can't do? They cannot prepare their substrate.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, that substrate isn't properly prepared, the floor is going to fail. So, it's not as easy as people make it sound. And as we both know, ceramic is the single hardest product category in the entire flooring industry to do things and do it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, look, I can go to Home Depot's workshop. They're going to teach me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll throw Lowe's under the bus too because they got a workshop as well. But anyways, let's not go down that road.
I want to say one last thing about training. The other thing that we have at the Floor Source is we have AFSU, which is America's Floor Source University, which is online classes that we've been putting together. And unlike other people's, it's the stuff that they truly need to learn. Like I hand select every item that we put into this training program, and we get grows every single week, and it's relevant. And I've been on. There's various organizations that have these online places that you can learn. The NWFA has theirs. And by the way, I think theirs is really good. Like, I really liked going through all their training. The WFCA has theirs. I don't like it as much. I mean, not saying it's worthless, but it's not as good. So, and then I read what different people are doing, and I'm seeing what type of training they're doing, and I can see why the industry's in the shape it's at, why so many real retailers can't get that growth, can't advance any farther than they are. That training just is one small piece of the whole equation.
Yeah, you got to have a well-rounded plan. I mean, training's important, don't get me wrong, but there's got to be marketing and sales and strategies set up behind it all. So let's get into that. Okay. So how did we go from, you had one store, yourself and 6 other people, and you went from, you said you did $1 million in 6 months, $5 million in a year.
Yeah.
That's huge growth. That's crazy amounts of growth. So did those 7 people handle that 5 million, or did you get a couple more along the way? And then how did you get from store 1 to store 2?
So as we grew, we brought on more people. And coming from my background, right, third generation working in the family business, it was not difficult for me to, as we grew, there was a whole group of people who wanted to come work for me. So it was just, we'd add more accounts. I'd then go to the well and, add people. So, I mean, we added people in that first 6 months as we were growing, and we were adding quality people. But here's the thing. Here's how you have to do it. I'll get to the stores, growing here in a minute. As an owner or as a manager, you have to be able to trust that someone else can do the job. And what I see happen in our industry a ton, for the majority of people are trying to go, they just can't let go, right? They can't. You actually have to bring someone on and show them the job you want them to do, or teach them what they need to know and get them going on the right path, and you got to be able to let go. And if you can't do that, again, you're never going to be able to get to where you're going. I mean, I can't do 100 million and do everything myself. I have to have now hundreds of people do it on their own. But that process of being able to just let go, and guess what? They may not do it as good as I do. Guess what? They may do it better, right? But you have to just, you have to be able to, I was convinced that I could do anyone's job better than they could. Now, at this point in my career, these people who do what they do every day, they do it better than I could do it for them because they do it every day. Not saying that I couldn't go back in and do what they do every day and enhance, but you have to be able to let go. And so that's one way. We added people, we trained them, and then I trust that they could do the job that needed to be done. And if they made mistakes or whatever, you work with them and you learn from those mistakes. We've made hundreds and thousands of mistakes over the course of the last 20 years. We learn from every one and we get better. We really try very hard not to get rid of people. We try to really just make them better. I've had people that have been with me for years and years and years that have made mistakes that have cost us up to, I remember one mistake cost us $120,000. I did not fire that person. That person will never make that mistake again. They learned from it.
Yeah.
As far as the store growth, we didn't actually open any other stores until 2010. And this was right at the end of the recession. And we opened, when you focus on business to business, which, we were focusing on builder, but by 2010, we had added our apartment replacement division. We had added our wholesale division, and we had just launched our retail division. We had an opportunity to open in Cincinnati and in Indianapolis. And it's just because different builders that we were doing business with were located in those markets and said, hey, you guys are a great contractor. If we commit to giving you business, will you open in our marketplace? And that's the only reason I'm in these other markets. Every market we're in is because we had business preset by a client asking us, saying, will you open in this marketplace? And that's in a great position because then you can sit with them and say, yes, I can. However, we need to talk about this commitment level. Like, so for instance, if I'm opening in Cincinnati and the builder there builds 1,000 houses a year, then I can say, look, can you carve out, can you guarantee me, 75 of those houses? And as long as you can guarantee me that I'll get that, then I can develop a facility and a personnel package that will allow us to service you the way we need to service you, where we're not going to lose money. I think most people, when they expand, if you go in blind and you don't have preset business, then your odds of that store making are greatly reduced. Well, the other thing when you open a new store is the staff, right? I mean, the hardest part of a new market is the operational part. Like, how do you get someone to run your crews, and then how do you get those crews and how you know those crews are reliable? It's tremendously easier to be in your existing market and then just expand that market, right? Just add divisions, add locations. So in Columbus, it's easy. I've got the operations people. I've got the installation people. I've got plenty of installers. And as we grow, it's, we're well known. It's easy. Go to a city like Cincinnati where no one knows you and, try to do all that. You're just putting yourself in a position to potentially fail unless you can get some of these key components in place.
Well, so are you moving people from one operation that are in a set mode and already know how the system works over to the new one? Or are you trying to bring somebody in and train somebody completely from the ground up?
A combination of both, right? You try to get at least one, potentially more of your existing employees to relocate because they bring the knowledge and the culture of how we run as America's Floor Source. Look, you're a flooring guy, right? So if I decided to open in Arizona and I called you and I, put a package out, you say, you know what, I'm going to shut my business down and work for America's Floor Source. The problem would be is you want to understand our culture and how we do things. You would understand how you do things. So we need to interject that, right? So that's why we need that person. In some cases, we brought people to Columbus and had them work in Columbus for 3 months before we'll send them out to their city. But the best way is to take an existing employee and position them in the market. However, we haven't always done it that way. I mean, in one market we opened in, a flooring company of pretty decent size was shutting down. So there were all these good people who were available. And so we hired, I think it was like 4 or 5 of them. And then the president of the company at the time basically lived in a hotel for a year in that city and got all those people up to speed on how we do it as America's Floor Source. And that's our second best market, potentially has the potential to be our biggest market. Columbus and Indianapolis are our 2 best markets. And in Indy, we can take that whole market over. It's so much opportunity for us there.
Well, and the other thing you said that was interesting was that your clientele came to you and asked for you to expand. And that, like you said, that puts you in a completely different side of the table in negotiating. You're not just taking, you're not throwing a dart at the map of, oh, where do I want to expand to next? And you throw a dart and you say, this town looks good. So that, how did you, I mean, where'd the relationship come from that they're essentially begging you to come and be in that market instead of using the providers that are already there?
Well, it comes over time, right? I mean, in the markets that we work in, we try to be just simply better than everyone else, and not by a small amount, by a large amount. You know, may not shock you, but if I bid a builder and my competitor bids a builder, I am not going to be less money than them. I'm just not. Right? We charge appropriately, so we can pay the guys appropriately, so that we can get the level of service that we need to get. So over time, you know, if I'm doing their work and subcontractors X, Y, and Z are doing their work, we're constantly outperforming them. You know, and every day. So and then of course the same way that we establish relationships with our employees, like I told you earlier, we're constantly establishing relationships with the people we're doing business with. So over time, you know, when they say, you know, I'm sick and tired of this market we're in, well, we just can't get it right. Can you guys come help us? That's how it kind of goes. And it's like, well, let's talk about it. Let's see. But here's the reality. I personally don't like geographic expansion. I would much prefer to grow existing markets to their maximum capability. So think about it this way. Think about the company that's got 30 locations, you know, in 30 different cities all across the country. But each one of those locations is doing, you know, 3 million, 5 million, 7 million. Give me one location that does 50 to 70 million, right? And then give me another location that can build up to 50 or 70 million. In other words, the amount of problems that occur when you have all these locations are endless. Like, I can't imagine having to run a company where I've got 50 different hub locations in 50 different cities. There'd be headaches every single day. Not saying there aren't headaches on our current setup, but they're much more controllable because our footprint is smaller. I get in my car and get to any location we have in less than 4 hours. But to me, that's a huge difference. Maximize the market that we're in, and we maximize it by making sure we can do all aspects, right? We can do retail, we can do commercial, we can do builder, we can do foreign relation, we do wholesale, and we try to do them better than any of our competitors. Even if the competitor, that's their full focus, like this competitor only does retail. Well, just because they only do retail doesn't mean they're great at it. And I would tell you that most small retailers think they're really good at what they do, and most of them are not. Like, they're not bad at it, but they're not top notch. They're trying to do every aspect of their business themselves, and that's where they're going to lose to a company like mine, because we will be able to do things better than they can because we have specialists in each area. There's only so much that owner can do with a couple people versus a company like ours that is different than, let's say, a Home Depot or Lowe's, because we simply care and are better trained. Mm-hmm. We're a machine, dude. We're an animal. I would not want to have to compete with a company like mine.
Well, and so you said that you would rather, instead of just having a bunch of little locations that are all doing well but not great, you want to maximize. Okay, so let's take me for example. Okay, I do residential remodel work only, and I only do laminate, luxury vinyl plank, and engineered hardwood. I want to open a store. Could I carry carpet? Yes. Can I carry tile once I get a store? Yes. Am I going to push those? Sure. I mean, I can sell it, but I'm not going to be big on, you know, I can find a couple of people and I can recommend installers, but I'm not going to personally install it. So can I maximize my business within a certain segment? Like, you're looking to dominate an entire market from all aspects with wholesale and retail and builder work, commercial work. Can you take a location and I just do that residential remodel thing and I can maximize that potential? Is that something that you need to focus on when you're getting into that side of things?
I would tell you absolutely you can. I think one of the keys to it is everyone in their own mind has their version of success and what they're trying to be. So me, coming from my background, coming from a large family business, when I started my company, you know, the dream was, man, if I could build this into a $50 million business, that would be great. Obviously, we doubled that, and we're now, you know, looking at $1 billion. But So each person, so if someone's opening a flooring store and they're like, look, my dream is to have 1 or 2 locations and to be able to do, $5 or $10 million, whatever that number is, then, it's definitely achievable. Everything's different, right? So for you, you may say, look, I want to do it. I want to do these categories. I want to do them better than anyone else. I want to be known in my market as the guy to go to for these things. And you have that number in mind, you can definitely do it. I mean, you can, so I think it's healthy that people have those thoughts and really think about where do I want to get to? Because the size of your company, like, look, you want to do $100 million, there's a lot of pieces and components that you have to put together to be able to do that. If I just want to have a store that can do $5 million, if that's, we can do that too. We can do that with a lot less things. Like, you don't need it. So you figure out what's best for you, and then you put the plan together that allows you to do it. But again, it's still going to require the sacrifice. It's still going to require the training. It's still going to require, giving up to your employees, control where you trust that they can do that job. And, so it's putting all those components together that will allow you to do that.
Okay.
Most people don't think about it, Kyle, right? Like most people, here's something I would love to do. It's driving me crazy, but I see all the nonsense that goes on in all these groups on Facebook. You know what I'd love? I'd love every retailer to just let everyone post their volume over the last 5 years. And I think what we're going to see is the vast majority are going to be doing about the same every year. And that's where I have a big problem with it. Like, you're talking about wanting to improve your business, but the numbers are telling me nothing is happening. And it drives me crazy when I see these people and they're doing these things and they're working on this, that, or the other. Dude, you want to grow your business? Guess what you need to do? You better hire that next employee and train them, and then let go of something to them. And then hire your next employee and train them and let go of that and go to the next. That's reality. That's the only way you're ever going to get your business to where you want it. You got to hire, train, let go. Hire, train, let go. Now, when I say let go, not like fire them, like let go, let them do what you train them to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think that comes with most things. I don't remember where I heard it at this point, but it's ambition versus drive. Okay. I always had tons of ambition. And that's great. That's talk, that's dreams, that's goals, that whatever it is. But until you have the drive to accomplish what your ambition is telling you, you're not going to have anything. And so until I started documenting my goals and coming up with plans and printing them out and pasting them on my wall so that I can see them on a regular basis, nothing happened for me. And I'm sure it was the same for you. I guarantee, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but you have goals for your business, and they aren't just in your head. They are somewhere in your office or your home or multiple places, correct?
You are correct. And not only do I have overall goals for the company written out and printed that get updated multiple times throughout the year, and it is up on my wall and in the computer. Everyone who works at American Source has them, and then they have their goals as well. And their goals have to align with what we're trying to accomplish to the company. And then every month we're reviewing them, like how are we doing trying to achieve these goals. I find a lot of companies do a lot of busy work, they're saying, I want to advance. And they'll spend a lot of time doing things, but they don't do the hard stuff that makes them advance. Yeah, I can put together this, that, or the other, but the reality is I have to actually take action and do things that are going to make it grow. And let's face it ultimately boils down to people. You can't, there's only so much, Kyle, you can do as one person. And until you add more people, you will hit a threshold that you will never be able to get past until you hire and train and hire and train and hire and train. It's impossible. And that's really one of the most limiting steps that people can get done. And look, it's not uncommon for someone who doesn't have the ability to let go. We see it all in the installer forums. This is where I see it the most.
Oh, yeah.
I don't trust another guy to do the work as well as I can do it. Well, then you're never going to be able to grow your business past a certain point, because until you have trust and can let go and accept the fact, look, if the guy can't do it as well as you can you train him to do it to a level of expectation that is acceptable to you? And the answer to that question is, of course you can. And if you can't answer that question yes, then you're never going to be able to do it. And you're going to have to just figure out another way to be happy.
Well, I think the problem with installers is that we're perfectionists. And that's why you can't let go and you can't let somebody else do it for you, is because it's never good enough. But you are correct. There is a level that the homeowner will accept and be amazed with, and that's what you're after. And you have to get them to that level.
Correct. Right. And then and that's just on the work side. And as you know, you got to get reliable people, right? You got to get people that are going to show up every day. You got to get people that understand how important parents can be. And, just they understand the small aspects of what else it takes besides being able to, undercut the door jamb right or level the floor right or whatever it is. There's a bunch of other components that you're hopefully looking for to develop in that individual. And hopefully they come with an original skill set. And that skill set may not be in installing flooring, but that skill set may be in just being a genuinely good, caring person who wants to work and wants to learn and wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And 20 years later, they can look at their life and say, I made a difference to myself, to my family, to this business. I'm appreciated. I'm respected. All those things matter.
Mm-hmm. Totally. My apprentice that quit on me has come back, and that's something that I'm making a big push for now that he has come back. And we sat down and we talked, and I was like, look, dude, like, what do you want out of life? Where do you want to be? And I told him that he needs to come up with goals and sit down and, okay, we're going to, once you get them written down and you have like a roadmap, we'll go to lunch and we'll sit down and we'll talk and we'll get you squared away and figured out how you're going to get there and how I can help you get where you want to go, whether it's with me or on your own or whatever you want to do. But it's that approach that you had early on of investing in those people and getting them what they need so that they can give you everything they have, and then they can feel as if they truly helped grow it. Like, sure, does it put money in my pocket when he works for me? Yes, but that's not all it's about. I get to put money back in his pocket. I get to make him a better person. And so we can grow with each other and move on. And I think that's a lot of what people are missing, is it's not just finding the person that you can trust to do the job, but you've got to find a way to invest in them and let them feel as if it's more rewarding than just getting the paycheck at the end of the week.
I would agree. And the other thing, look, I don't want to make it seem like, look, you can grow a company to a large size and not do everything correct, right? I mean, I know companies that are bigger than my company that I know the training, they're just, you've seen it. You see what a company like Lumber Liquidators can do, and we are a Home Depot or Lowe's, and in the flooring department, and we both know the type of quality and things. So it's definitely doable with what I would say, not even doing everything the right way, doing a lot of things the wrong way. At my company, I've learned personally more over probably the last 3 years than I learned over the first 17. And I have meetings with my team all the time with my people, and I say, man, I can't believe we grew to this size with the limited amount of knowledge we had in these areas. And now that we've gone back and we filled in those gaps of what, and really it comes down to what we were talking about earlier, the application training of the product, like how limited the knowledge was of so many people in the company. And then you start filling those components in and you get them completely well-rounded. Now we look at where we are today versus where we're going to be in 5 and 10 years from now. And we're like foaming at the mouth. We're like, man, this is ours for the taking, because we understand how unprepared our competitors are. Like we just understand it. We're just completely better. We're in every aspect. Now, not than everyone, but than most people that compete with what I compete in. So I look at what you do and what other guys do. To me, you're not my competitor. You focus in an area of a market. My competitors are, these bigger, larger companies who focus on the builder work and it's two completely different ball games, right? Yes. I mean, it's like how we have to pay our labor. if you're a retail installer, hey, we'll negotiate and we'll come up with rates that work for both sides for the types of jobs we're doing. We'll call and we'll schedule you when we have jobs that meet those things. But when it comes to the builder work, you want to do like Pulte homes and KB homes and like, I mean, there's levels of labor that get paid, and that's it. Like there's no movement, and you have to be when you're my type of company, like you have to understand that. So when I talk to installers about rates, and they're like, I can't believe I would never work for that rate. Well, you're talking about a specific division, so you would never work in that division. But look, if you need to make X amount, then you would have to work in this division for us, right? It's different. Every segment of the business has very specific things that happen, and a lot of that has to do with labor.
Correct.
And I'm getting way off topic.
No, totally agree. And I know this could go on much, much longer, and I'm sure I know I will have you back and we will talk more about growing a business just because you have done such a great job at it. I do have to close this out, but I know you also have a little bit of an announcement to make. So let's hear that. What's the big news? And then we'll close this out.
All right. So, aside from flooring, I do own two technology companies. One is Retail Lead Management, which is lead management CRM for the flooring industry. And on that business, we've been building and programming out scheduling and field management with site assessment. And we're hoping to have it done by the end of the year, which means it probably won't, but who knows, it may be. And no other software in flooring has what we're building, just like no one had what I built when I originally built RLM. So that's one. But two is Chalama. And Chalama, the trade labor marketplace, we connect business and labor, where most, like the home advisors connect homeowner to a labor and labor pays for it. And with Chalama, everything is free for labor. I made a big mistake when I initially launched it. I launched an incomplete platform, which I never do, but in tech, evidently, like that's how you do things. Well, I'm not a tech guy. I'm a flooring guy, and I've already told my partner this tech that we're absolutely never doing that again. Like I don't ever do anything half-assed, and I launched an incomplete product. And so, I just pulled it. I mean, yes, you can get the app, but you can't do any connection. Well, we've been working since surfaces, since the launch. The one good thing of the early launch was we got a lot of really good feedback. And it took us, we reprogrammed it. We've been reprogramming it now for months and months and months. I've been putting even more money into the programming components, but it's almost ready for relaunch. And on the relaunch, it's going to be a complete program. In other words, it'll work. It'll be able to connect. There will be no, what I told you earlier, like we have to wait for a market build up. We don't have to do that anymore. Like you'll be able to take your app and you'll be able to see if any jobs are. You may put in 50 miles, and if no businesses have posted jobs yet, then none will show. But guess what? You may extend it out to 100, 200. In other words, anyone who signed up for the app will be able to see, like, you can set your parameters to whatever you want so that you say, look, it's launched, start. And so I'm really excited because I really think this product is needed, and I'm aggravated at myself the way I did it initially. And look, it's like I told you earlier, we live and learn. We make all kinds of mistakes over time, and that's a mistake I made on that tech company launch. But luckily for me, I get to fix it, right? I mean, it didn't hurt anybody. It may have hurt my pride a little bit. It may have hurt people's belief in the product we built for a short term, but I think when they see what we've turned it into, I think there's going to be a whole lot of happy people. I mean, this product is going to be awesome.
I'm excited. I've been excited. So that sounds great. I think it takes you didn't have anyone to apologize to. You said from the beginning, this is what we're doing with it, but you feel it was a personal failure to have an incomplete concept delivered. And I think it says a lot about you to sit there and say, I screwed up and I apologize, and this is what we're doing with it now. So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's a lot of people who can't do that. I think one of the best features of a leader is being able to take responsibility and admitting when you messed up. And I do it all the time. Like, look, I jacked up. Like, I made a wrong decision. It didn't work out, but we can fix it. Like, it's not the end of the world. And you learn from it and you move on. And that's what really separates the good from the great. The people who can learn from their mistakes, fully admit that they made the mistake, and then move on. In this case, this mistake, this didn't hurt anyone. No one had any skin in this game except me, right? Me and my partner. I'm the one who put up all the money. He's the one who's done all the programming. It's just, it's that sense of, man, I feel like I let everyone down because I made these bad decisions. Mm-hmm. But wait until round two. The person, like the most dangerous person is the person who failed and then comes back to the same thing for the second time because they figured out what they did wrong and they've done it. By the way, not to keep this going, but I've done the same thing at American Sorcerers. We've opened markets and we've closed the market down because we made a mistake or multiple mistakes. Well, and not mistakes were many that I'm not going to get into now, get into that on a whole nother podcast episode, but you learn from what you did wrong and you correct and you revamp and you replan and you relaunch. That second time around, that person is dangerous.
I agree. You can look at Apple. They came in with a little bit of a mission and made something, and the company kind of fell apart for years, and then they got together and decided that it wasn't necessarily computers, but it was going to be like portable devices that they wanted. And that's changed the world over the past, probably 2 decades now almost. When I can't even think when the iPod came out anymore, but it's got to be around 20 years now.
Yeah.
So, it's you give somebody an inch and they'll take a mile if they know what's going on. So I think that's really valuable insight that you can't give up. You can't let something get you down and beat you up and put you out. You've got to look at it and say, how'd I screw it up? How can I do it better this time? And then go and do it. You got to execute.
I want to leave all the listeners with one thought. We all in this industry have an opportunity because we happen to work in an industry that it's out there for the taking. There's not superior competition. There's not superior, really, the technology behind our industry is really dated. As you know, there's a lack of qualified installers. The training that happens within a bunch of these organizations is haphazard. So for those of you who actually want to take your business to the next level, or have the desire, will make the commitment, will make the sacrifice, you understand the importance of people, you understand the importance of being able to let go and let other people do those things, you do the work, you can make a great living and have a huge impact in this industry and build yourself quite a large company. You just gotta make the commitment to do all those things. It's wide open.
Sorry, I'm off in my own world. Yes, you've got to. You're right. There's so much that somebody can do if they set themselves to committing to doing better, because there is a lack of good tradespeople in this community, and there's a lack of well-educated store owners and employees at stores. And so it's funny, if you go and treat people right with honesty and integrity, it'll go a long way, and you can outperform the market in your area very easily. So Jason's right. Get committed, get some training, learn some stuff, get certified, make some goals, post them up, let everybody know them, get everybody on board. A lot of times the owner has goals, and that's great, but if the company doesn't have them, they can't do them. They can't help you get there, which you miss the boat then, and you're out in the ocean in your dinghy all by yourself, and they're back on shore laughing at you as you try and survive in the ocean in the big waves and stuff. So Jason, thank you so much for your time. I know it is very valuable. I appreciate the insights. Would love to have you back. I'm sure we can manage that. I look forward to seeing Trolama debut and seeing what that can do for the market. You got anything else?
Well, I just want to, thank you. I always love talking to you. I love your passion for the industry. And you know what? We didn't even talk about something, so we have something to talk about next time. But the newest state-of-the-art training facility in the entire country, I'm going to be building it. I kind of told you about it previously, but let's leave the listeners with that, because that monstrosity and that thing that is needed, I'm building it. And I've already bought the land for it, and it's going to be a huge thing for our industry when I get this thing up on the roof, built and launched.
Awesome. I would love to come and see it and figure out how it can help grow this entire industry. So awesome. Thank you again. Totally appreciate it. Right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right. That's all the time we have for this week. To keep the conversation going, head on over to the Floor Academy Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe so you can hear each and every episode. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and most major podcast directories. Don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you think about the show. If you would like to be a guest, have questions or feedback, you can email us at flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. You can help support the show by becoming a patron over at www.patreon.com/flooracademy. Remember to learn while you earn.